A Christian Testimony. From New Age to Jesus Christ, a Modern Spiritual Odyssey. Part 4 of 9. In Part 4, a personal spiritual awakening leads to a solitary life in the Rockies. A chance encounter with the Summit Lighthouse transforms his path by joining the organization. They are directed by the Ascended Masters to prepare for a societal upheaval, by amassing vast resources, of guns, food and gold. Moving about by force of will, I was fully awake as I re-entered by body. Surely, I thought, I am learning the things that Jesus learned and I am on the great path of enlightenment. Intuitively I knew I was riding the crest of a great wave of spiritual activity worldwide. Though the health food store was prospering in a phenomenal way, the urge to find a solution for personal and collective healing overwhelmed me. I began focusing my life. All aspects of my attention were centered on the new dimensions I had become conscious of. Physically I had never felt better in my life. Mental sharpness and agility returned to me in an unprecedented fashion. Without difficulty the smoking habit I had was thrown off. Daily I pored over the sacred writings of the various epochs and cultures of the world. From Kabbalah to Tao Te Ching, from Stonehenge to the recesses of the Himalayas, my soul swept through to grasp greater depths of insight and continuity. From the cosmic reaches of the astrological vastness of space to the hidden depths of obscure spiritual realms, my mind and heart searched and probed for the doorways of spiritual initiation that I now was convinced I must pass through. Also I made great efforts to watch what was happening with others as part of a spiritual awakening washing across the land. Was the utopian Aquarian age appearing? One of the organizations that particularly caught my interest was the Summit Lighthouse. They have since taken the name Church Universal and Triumphant, CUT. They were headquartered in Colorado and claimed to be in touch with a spiritual hierarchy of ascended masters. This hierarchy of enlightened beings was said to have attained liberation from ignorance and sorrow of the earth. Most of their doctrine was very eclectic, incorporating ideas and religious practices from all major religions and schools of mysticism. Their bi-monthly publication called Pearls of Wisdom really caught my fancy. This group was to play a big role in the next phase of my life. In March of 1969 I once again abandoned the mundane routines of daily life. To be sure, the health food business was prospering and expanding far beyond our expectations. But the unsettled state of my heart beckoned me to press on in my spiritual quest. With a large quantity of religious literature in hand, through a very circuitous route, I landed in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. I had purposed to live as a religious recluse. I wore a woolen hooded robe that I hand-stitched out of army blankets. My diet consisted of brown rice and any foods I could forage in the wilds. I had long since sworn off eating meat. Roots and greens along with grain, salt and flour sustained me. In my mountain refuge I built a little lean-to to protect me from the ravages of the high country's early spring weather. Quickly my life settled into a routine of reading, meditation and food gathering. Each morning, in a ritual bath, would immerse myself in the icy spring runoff of the stream that flowed nearby. After thawing out I'd breakfast, pray and study. Not a day would go by without casting the I Ching, a form of Chinese divination that incorporated casting yarrow stalks and interpreting them in the context of the Chinese Book of Changes. I found a clay deposit in the stream bank and fired myself implements to eat out of and store things in. All in all I was tranquil and considered my endeavors successful. As weeks went by and the elements became more spring-like, the only adversity I encountered was a squirrel's persistent ransacking of my grain stash. Very profound dreams accentuated my nights. One morning in late April I was startled awake by a vivid dream in which I was told to leave my mountain sanctuary. The I Ching indicated that with movement I would prosper. Inspired I hid my supplies and began descending the mountain valley. I had not seen anyone for the entire time of my stay in this remote region. Indeed, even the old dirt roads were overgrown and rarely traveled. Not very far from my camp sat a young man in a vehicle staring off into the grand mountain view before him. We were both startled at each other's presence. As I approached him he smiled and said, "I guess I was supposed to meet you here." I told him of my dream and he politely invited me to his car and proceeded to take me to Colorado Springs, a then small college town not too far from Denver, Colorado. Our conversation focused on matters of philosophy and religion. He dropped me off at the campus and that was the last I saw of him. Quickly I made acquaintance with several searchers in the area and we became fast friends. Although we had all taken drugs in some form, we had left that option far behind in our pursuit of the truth. We now engaged ourselves in a plethora of disciplines of the mystery schools. Many of them required rigorous regimes of meditation and study. On one particular day I had an encounter with a spiritual being whose outline appeared before me as I was in contemplation. There was no communication, but only a conscious awareness of this entity. The field of spirit was full of sentient beings. Who and what are they? Was this an ascended master or an angel? It never said. Several of us decided to visit the headquarters of the Summit Lighthouse, which was located in the Broadmoor district of Colorado Springs. I was astounded to find an oil painting in the center of their sanctuary that was an exact replica or portrayal of my initial experience on STP of passing through the rainbow. To see such a work of art depicting the hidden knowledge I literally partook of completely captivated me. In addition, my first visit was highlighted with an intense awareness of the spiritual elements that surrounded the people of this organization. Having become adept at discerning auras and seeing in the spiritual realm, I commented to many as to the colors and forms that surrounded their immediate vicinity. Much to the astonishment of many who attended the meeting, I was describing very specific designs and actions that these individuals would visualize as part of their spiritual practices. It was obvious to me that these people were tapping into a sphere of knowledge without having ever taken drugs. They claimed to be in contact with a spiritual hierarchy of great men and women, the ascended masters, who had attained to enlightenment and were now transmitting knowledge and assistance to the human race for its freedom and preparation for a new age. Among this august host of gods, goddesses, masters, angelic beings and interdimensional intelligences was Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, and just about every god and enlightened being presented by every religion, myth, and mystery school of the entire world. The wealth, straight-laced suit and tie, socially sophisticated air of the people threw me off, but I could not deny the apparent accumulation of spiritual understanding they had amassed that so eerily matched experiences of my quest. Mark and Elizabeth Prophet, the messengers of the masters, had geared up the organization and they were riding the crest of the wave of interest in alternative religions of the late 60s and early 70s. The monastery headquarters consisted of a turn-of-the-century mansion located in the heart of the high-end district of Broadmoor called La Tourelle, thus named because of the magnificent tower made of red brick with a marble stairway that spiraled in the center. Slate tile roof and French imported drain spout spoke of a time long ago. The brick walls of this structure were 3 feet thick. It didn't take long for me to get deeply involved with both the teachings and people of the Summit Lighthouse. Soon I was conscripted onto the staff and began my intense regimen of chanting, meditation and strict discipline shared by all the staff. At the peak of my rigorous lifestyle I was meditating and/or chanting up to 16 hours a day. More of my time was spent negotiating psychic and spiritual realms in a trance-like state than time spent conscious of my immediate surroundings. Hours on end were spent with Elizabeth as her personal eyes into the invisible world as well as her bodyguard. We practiced various rituals to protect the work and activity of the organization on spiritual planes. A room in the apex of that tower is where I spent day and night, often alone but more often with Elizabeth, as she edited copious amounts of literature and the frequent books they produced. Because of the status of Mark and Elizabeth as messengers of the Great White Brotherhood, it seemed proper to them for us to act as their guardians also. So along with my spiritual duties I along with several others attended the messengers wherever they went, always on guard. Frequently we slept on the floor outside their luxuriant master bedroom. Most of the other staff had quarters in the servants' house, a large building separate from the mansion. The spiritual beings that were the real backbone of the organization regularly expressed themselves through the messengers. Weekly oracles and quarterly conferences filled with outpourings of teachings to facilitate and cultivate contact with the spiritual hierarchy and develop spiritual attainment were the heartbeat of the organization. Regularly gurus, spiritual teachers, pundits and politicians attended and added to the meetings. It seemed as though the organization was a point of confluence for the energies that were molding the present social and political climate. Wealth accumulated and the worldwide scope of influence increased as the years went by, because the spiritual masters were predicting a massive social-political upheaval. Weapons and food were stored. Shipments of gold and silver coins from Mexico, Canada and elsewhere were regularly brought to the mansion. This is the end of part 4 of 9. Please like, share, or subscribe to our channel. Thank you and may God bless you. Thank you for listening to this testimony, we hope it has been helpful. Now, let's briefly introduce a new book, The Surface Theory by R.G. Gibson, that presents 2 new innovative creation theories. Born from personal revelation and years of research, these 2 theories emerged from previously overlooked key words, offering profound new insights into Genesis. This book also unveils new scientific discoveries related to this topic. Prepare for a paradigm shift that makes Genesis logical, dissolving the previous barriers between faith and science. Find the key to these mysteries and many more within the pages of The Surface Theory by R.G. Gibson, available on Amazon.